Hello, critical thinking. Why it's so important for us? Critical thinking is an efficient tool to work on any socio-educational topic with young people and teenagers, and we will see why it works. What's critical thinking? It's an intentional process of reflection, analysis, evaluation of the ideas and information that surround us. It combines some cognitive skills as analysis, inference evaluation, and attitudinal dispositions as doubt, open-mindedness, intellectual responsibility. But of course, critical thinking doesn't mean to criticize for the sake of criticism. It's something more specific, more intense, more interesting. It's an attitude towards the information, the ideas, and influences we receive from our environment. It's a healthy attitude, an active attitude, a sensitive to truth attitude, an argumentative attitude, a protective, open-minded, cautious, rigorous, suspicious, curious, questioning attitude. And about information, in fact, there is no such thing as objective information. We have facts. Facts are real, are factual truth. But facts are not information. After facts, we have discourses. Discourses are the interpretation of these facts in order to create the information we receive. But discourses are always contaminated by some interests like corporate interests, political interests, private interests, power relations, or ideology. Ideology can be hidden. Then we can talk about manipulation. Okay, so factual truth is not a matter of opinion. This is very, very important. Facts are factual truth. And I'll give you an example. Now, there are some problems in Minneapolis. We have a fact. Fact is federal immigration agents from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, have been deployed to Minneapolis as part of a large-scale enforcement operations. Two people, Alex Pretty and Rene Good, have been shot and killed by federal agents in Minneapolis during protests. Okay, these deaths have been confirmed by multiple news reports and official acknowledgments. These facts are not a matter of opinion, are facts, factual truth. We cannot opinate about this. But then there are the discourses that come from these facts, and these discourses are a matter of opinion. In Minneapolis, the same facts, many discourses from different approaches. So we have an approach from systemic racism, state violence, another opposed approach from order, security, crime control, another approach on democratic dissent, urban decline, as a media spectacle, as a lived experience by the community, as urban resilience, as an approach from management, procedure, legitimacy. So we have many discourses, many interpretations of the same facts. And these are matter of opinion. So information is the interpretation of factual truth through a specific discourse or the synthesis of several discourses. It's never neutral or 100% objective as it responds to interests, always or many times hidden interests and ideologies. So I always bring philosophers because they just help us. And then we have Hannah Arendt that says something important. Facts exist and are not negotiable. We cannot discuss the facts. We cannot discuss the reality of Holocaust. We cannot discuss the reality of people who have been killed by ICE in Minneapolis. There are facts. If we discuss these facts, it's because we are obliged by symbolic violence. Okay, we must preserve factual truth. If we don't do that, if we relativize the facts, our common world, our common experience, our common sense, in fact, as society disintegrates. And we move from truth to propaganda. Hannah Arendt had to live and suffer the Nazism and she knew a lot of how truth becomes propaganda. So the lack of truth or the relativization of truth becomes propaganda. Okay, and Michel Foucault, he says that we must have a radical suspicion towards discourses that present themselves as true. He's not so interested as the truth itself, but as who is in the position to say this is true. Okay, so who has the power to tell that something is true? Under which conditions the truth is produced? Okay, so truth is always inserted in what he calls regimes of truth, that's institutions, practices, knowledge areas. We must always be suspicious towards the discourses, not towards the facts. And with this little help, we can say that to think critically means to analyze, question, and assess information and discourses before accepting them as valid. We must try to isolate factual truth, as Hannah Arendt told us, from opinion and discourses that might have hidden ideological power or private interest, as Foucault teaches us. It involves reflecting on one's own ideas and making decisions based on evidence rather than assumptions or impulses. Okay, so it involves reflecting on one's own ideas and making decisions based on evidence. And to think critically means to analyze, question, and assess information before accepting it as valid. So remember, please, Arendt and Foucault. They can help us a lot. So, to foster critical thinking, we must develop some specific soft cognitive skills as analysis, creative thinking, evaluation, interpretation, reasoning, analysis. And we should remember these skills. We must also encourage constructive attitudes and dispositions, create safe spaces for dialogue and reflection, integrate the digital environment and social networks as context for personal and social development, reinforce the application of critical thinking to everyday life. Promoting critical thinking means recognizing critical thinking as a fundamental tool for learning, moral development, civic participation, and personal growth. So, as you can realize, it is basic to work critical thinking with teenagers and youngsters. They are developing their cognitive power, their values, their ethics, and their ideology. Adolescence and emerging adulthood are key stages of cognitive and identity development. As we all know, during adolescence, reasoning and abstract thinking abilities become consolidated. At this stage, opinions, beliefs, values, and identity are formed. Teenagers live in an environment saturated with information. And we have seen this information not so clear related to factual truth, misinformation, and all kinds of ideas, messages about how they should have to behave, dress, think, and especially buy. Adolescents and young people are highly present in the digital environment, and it is essential for them to develop filters to interpret information critically and accurately. I must say that misinformation is not only linked to the digital environment. We can find misinformation in the traditional media, but also in friends, peers, family, school, etc. So, also, we all know that there is intentionality on the part of certain sectors in our society, within the mass media, to reach teenagers and youth as a specific target audience, one that could be more impressionable and easily influenced for commercial, mainly, but also, as we have seen in Europe recently, for political purposes. But when individuals can critically manage information, they are able to make decisions based on the common good, on the general interest, and rather than an individualism. Educating individuals in democratic and community responsibility is essential for cohesive, fair, and democratical societies. And that's something that goes a little beyond that critical thinking. It's called MIL-CT, Media and Information Literacy and Critical Thinking. That means the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act upon media and information critically and ethically, using critical thinking skills to understand messages, recognize bias and misinformation, and make informed decisions in digital and social context. It's a complex methodology developed by UNESCO, and I think it's important to check it as educators. The component of MIL-CT are access, so the ability to locate, retrieve, and select relevant media and information across platforms and formats, analysis, the capacity to interpret messages, identify purposes, audiences, perspectives, and understanding underlying assumptions. Some of them could be manipulated assumptions. Evaluation skills to assess credibility, reliability, accuracy, bias, and quality of the information and sources we use. And creation. So we should foster the ability to produce and communicate media by youths themselves, information, and in which way? In a responsibly, ethical, and effective way. Also, it deals with reflection and ethics, awareness of the ethical issues, values, rights, responsibilities, and the social impact of media and information, and obviously critical thinking and decision making, applying reasoning, questioning, and evidence-based judgment to inform opinions and actuations and decisions. Okay, so what can we do with our youngsters and teenagers to foster critical thinking? The idea wouldn't be to organize workshops. It's better to introduce small but consistent adjustments into everyday socio-educational relationship with them. It's the most effective way to achieve significant advances in critical thinking skills. And we will tell you some of them. Of course, there are far more, but we chose just some. Make open questions that in everyday life can help to think. The idea is to ask on how to force thinking. Foster independent research. That means that we have a teenager, a youngster that is interested in something. For instance, I don't know, in some kind of gym routine, we can tell him, can you make some research about this in different sources and compare? We are not telling to make a research for school, but to make a research on things that are interesting for him, okay, or for her, and to research, compare, analyze, make a critical evaluation of the different sources, of the accuracy, of the reliability. Okay, debate. Well, debate is important, and you see that asterisk is because we will talk about debate later. Use everyday examples, use everyday life, promote problem-solving activities. We can use things as simple as a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle, but also we can use escape rooms, role-playing, etc. We must be an example of critical thinking. That means when we say something, we accept questions, we accept critics, and we must argument it. We must promote self-reflection. So if somebody says something, why did you say this from your point of view? We must always require argumentation. There's the boy in my group who says, all immigrants are lazy. I can listen to your opinion, but please, can you argument why this? Okay, use pros and cons. This for personal decisions. It's quite useful and um, forces the teenager, the young person, to analyze, to compare, to decide. As educators, we must be always balanced. That means that even if we have an opinion and we can share this opinion, we must be fair. So, for instance, if that boy who was a racist and we are not, wasn't able to give us arguments, but we have an anti-racist boy which whose opinion is the same as ours, we must also tell him you need arguments. Okay, so we must always be balanced. We must work soft skills because, as we have seen every day of our socio-educational life, we need to promote empathy. We need to promote assertiveness. We need to promote resilience, initiative. We need to promote all these soft skills to foster critical thinking. Curiosity works especially well for critical thinking, and there are a lot of research. Also, we must promote an ambience that facilitates critical thinking. We cannot promote critical thinking when every time that somebody says something, this person might not feel safe, at ease, telling things that maybe are not quite accurate. But anyway, what we need is that this person can explain what is his opinion. We can wonder aloud. Wonder aloud is that true? Is that possible? Okay. And promote skepticism. Skepticism is a healthy attitude. So, well, maybe, I don't know. I need facts. I need evidence. Then we'll have a bonus here. That's the philosopher corner. And in this bonus, I'll bring you three philosophers. Two of them you already know. The first one you should know. It's Socrates, and the idea is that we promote a love for truth, for factual truth, for truth in general. If we promote this love, we are promoting critical thinking. And of course, as Hannah Arendt told us, we must distinguish between facts and opinion. And as Foucault told us, we must foster suspicion on the discourses that come from power. Okay, so these 18 items, proposals might help us to foster critical thinking in our daily socio-educative relation with teenagers and youngsters. But there's more. We have a second bonus that's related to the importance of debate, of debating. But what's happening with debate? Debate is the communication core democratical practice in our societies that Jürgen Habermas. I'm being quite tricky here because Habermas is another philosopher. And democracy that was born in Athens comes from open public debate. Okay. If we don't have debate, it means that democracy is in trouble. But what is happening in our society nowadays, and I'll tricky again because I bring here Byung-Chul Han, that's a quite interesting philosopher from Berlin. And he tells us that debate is quietly disappearing because we are living in a society that wants comfort and where comfort prevails on everything. So debate requires discomfort, okay? Because a real debate involves disagreement, uncertainty, the risk of being wrong. Discomfort is treated as a problem, but it's not a problem. It's a space to think. Because, of course, debate creates friction and it gets framed as toxic or unproductive, but it's necessary for democracy. But there's more. Opinion has replaced arguments because debate is not about opinions, it's about reasons, it's about reasoning. As speed kills reflection. Debate needs time to listen, time to respond thoughtfully, time to reconsider our own positions. But social media require speed, and this is not compatible with debate. And of course, algorithms punish nuance. Nuance doesn't spread at the same speed that anger or hate or outrage do. Algorithms amplify extreme simplifications, moral binaries, but debate thrives on the gray areas. We need all colors, we need all grays. And our system pushes us toward just black and white. Finally, consensus is mistaken for harmony. We confuse agreement with peace, but in healthy societies, we can disagree openly. We can argue without dehumanizing. We can use debate to refine ideas, to progress as societies. When we avoid debate, we don't remove conflicts, we just drive them underground, where they become resentment and polarization. And that explains a lot why far right is increasing in Europe. A society that values comfort, speed, and certainty over truth and understanding will always struggle with debate. And that means that if it struggles with debate, we have a problem with democracy. Debate cultivates critical thinking. Critical thinking is essential to democratic societies. So when we talk about critical thinking, we're really talking about a very, very important topic. Critical thinking, finally, is a key methodology for us, people who works with young people and teenagers. It's important, it's key, because it can foster competence, skill in most of the relevant topics. We must work with them. And these skills are important for us as professionals, but also for the youngsters themselves. No? And from critical thinking, we can work efficiently on gender, digital society, climate change, community commitment, tolerance, health, relationships, life project, whatever. It works. There are many edited materials to develop critical thinking with young people, and I think that's all for today. Thank you for your attention, and think critically and think critically. Thank you.